to tape, baby.
I like this groove. That's nice.
Drum industry
playing drums.
news.
It's him, yeah.
Yeah, I made up a little thing, and it's me playing bass, and I don't play bass.
Is it really?
Just coming. I know. It's impressive.
You guys are
very
self.
impressive. We have no funds for the
Promoters.
show, so
Yeah.
we do everything. So, drum industry news, Matt. Just so you know, in this segment, we shed lights on parts of the drum industry that folks don't know a lot about, or we want to dig into more, talk about. It's really nerding about like industry type stuff. So sometimes it's product releases, sometimes it's like things like the drum show or different things like that. Today, I want to talk about drum clinics. I want to talk about drum clinics that we've attended, that we've seen, what you find most valuable out of the drum clinic, and then you've given drum clinics, add drums, etc. In fact, so I want to talk about that a little bit.
Oh my gosh, that was fun.
We just had a drum clinic because of our new location. We don't have like the space here to do it too much, but I'm looking for unique ways. And one of the ways that we can do it is the drum show. So kind of the grand finale of the drum show this year was a drum clinic, and we got Pat Petrillo to come in and do it.
Was that awesome?
It was super cool. Wow, dude, it was nutty too. And I know that like the capacity for like the little mezzanine area we had it in was probably like 50 people. And when there were like 200 people up there, we were like, dude. And I want to thank you because Matt was on speed dial to come in and save the day to be a clinician. So at some point we're going to connect and do something again.
Yeah, I was
But
on tour.
You were on tour and
didn't
you were like, I'm willing to fly up one night, like
Crazy.
fly up,
I have a
do
day
the
off.
clinic. You had literally one day and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm willing to spend it on planes the entire time to come do this for you guys. And that is
Unbelievable.
super generous
Yeah.
of you, man. Like I was talking to Sean and I was like, I don't want to make him do that, let alone like coordinate all this stuff, but like we'll connect again.
But it would have made for a great story.
Oh, I know.
Let's pretend he did do it.
But here we
Man,
are.
that was crazy, wasn't
Dude, what a clinic.
it? I can't believe you did that. You flew out and you almost missed your flight. I was there to pick you up.
Yeah.
I sped the entire way from Philly to here.
Yep.
You made it
Yep.
just in time.
Yep.
You freaking banged out a masterclass drum clinic. Standing ovation, and then I had to take you to the airport immediately right away. We got stuck in traffic. You didn't forget.
He
forget
forgot
about
his
the-
stick
I
bag
know,
on the way to the gig. We had to turn around. You forgot like that.
I feel like you've lied before. 'Cause that was really good.
Very good. But no, let's talk
I'll do it
about
again.
drum clinics. Because
I mean, not again. Now I feel like I
I'll
believe
do it again. Oh, no. I'll do it again.
What? Yeah, I was so convinced he thinks that he actually did it.
He thinks he actually did it.
I'll
do it again. I'll do it again.
Okay,
No.
this is bad.
So here's this podcast is going to just be us laughing for at least half of it, and I'm not editing any of it out, so people are just going to listen to us laugh. But drum clinics. Here's what people know about drum clinics. We don't need to talk about this stuff. People view drum clinics. They know they have to pay for a ticket. They go typically to a drum shop or a venue
Pull
to
myself
see
together.
something. I'm just going to keep talking through it. They go to an event. They see someone. And is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Sometimes there's giveaways. Usually there's a part where the drummer has to hit a little bit, play a couple songs, show off. There's usually a talking segment. But like that's all people have. There's so much behind the scenes, what Sean and I can talk about. But you have the perspective of being the guy that people are coming to see. So what is that like?
Man, there's so much about drum clinics. It's a whole different world than what I do with August Burns Red. That's the first thing I'd say. If you're a clinician but not in a band touring, it would be easy to think that you know what it's like to be in a band touring, but it's so different. So going back, I went to see Thomas Lang give a drum clinic in New Orleans. I found out he was there. I was on tour. It was 2004 or 5, and I paid, I think, $10 because I had to borrow the money from JB, who plays guitar in my band. I walked in. There were a lot of people. I sat near the back, and I remember exactly how he came out. Hair was wet. Came out to his huge kit. It was kind of a stale convention-like room, maybe 250 people. Sits down, and I remember him moving all 4 limbs, doing all this crazy stuff, throwing his head back, and his hair was flying around. And
People were getting wet in the splash zone.
It's like a Gallagher show, you know?
yeah, he had a sweat towel he was using. And I remember him talking here and there, but I just mostly remember him playing.
Okay.
I remember him playing. The other thing I remember is afterwards going up to him. There was a long line. I stood in it, and I got something signed. He was wearing a hat for that portion. I shook his hand, and that was it. So when I started to teach individual drum lessons, I realized that in my lessons, I have had lessons, but many of them were not very good. What I was trying to do was get affirmation from a teacher. And so when I teach, whether it's one-on-one or in a clinic setting, my goal is to get rid of that idea. You don't need me to affirm you. And I find a lot of times with students, all they're really looking for is you to say good job, or man, you did an awesome job, or wow, you really did good, or wow, you practiced hard. And looking back on how much money I spent on lessons trying to just get that, hey, you're doing a good job, it didn't serve me well. The reason I think I wanted it is because I was practicing so much and I didn't know if I was doing a good job. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing.
Sure.
So rather than tell them with my words, what I've found is when I'm teaching a clinic or one-on-one is playing. And just letting the student watch you, letting them play along, and just pick up what they can pick up from you. And when you're talking, you really should just mostly be listening, as a teacher, as an educator, to what your student wants to learn. Because for me, it was like, I didn't want to learn paradiddles. I wanted to learn blast beats and double bass. And I pretty much knew how to play them. I just wanted to make sure I was doing it right. But my teacher didn't listen, and I had a stutter. So we put those two together, and I'm learning whatever
It's a lot of communication barrier. Yeah, for sure.
It's not going to work. So here's a paradiddle. And I'm sitting here going, I know how to play this, but I'm afraid to tell him. So then I'm just playing along with them, thinking, oh my gosh, this is $45, for an hour, and I could really be working at home right now on my own stuff.
Right.
So for me, teaching one-on-one is really about listening, and it's also about watching the student play and them seeing you play. And then in a clinic setting, I always play more than what I found. I feel like, how do I say this? If a promoter says, hey, you can maybe play 3-4 songs, you got an hour and a half, you can talk, do Q&A, I'll play 6 or 7. Because I found as an attendee, I feel like it's cheap when you go somewhere and they just play a couple songs and then they're doing all the talking. The talking is the easy part. The playing is where you got to show up and bring your A game and show what you're made of. And I think that says a lot when you see someone do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that a lot of there are more folks that do clinics that have knowledge and might I don't know. I don't want to press on anyone's buttons or push anyone's buttons, but I might.
That's all right. Do it.
Okay, here we go. He gives me permission.
Do it.
He's not going to be here next
Hey
episode.
man, we gotta have people telling the truth about this world,
absolutely.
because that's what I'm saying. It's different than the touring world,
right.
and that there's some junk.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks that just because someone can do a clinic, doesn't mean that what they have is something that's of value that needs to be presented in that way. Meaning, there are a ton of people who can play certain books frontward and back. There are a ton of people who can be teachers, private lesson teachers that are great at that. But when the clinic comes up, there's people learn different ways. So I think it's important to have the visual thing and then also have the explanation. I think the talking is very important. It should never just be a performance because it's not what it is. If you want to see me on tour or on a show, you can do that, right? So it's interesting the balance of things. But a lot of people that promote or that approach a clinic will have an opposite viewpoint of you, being like, well, I can say these things, and then I'll just demonstrate a few things. And I think that especially younger drummers, like you were impressionable.
The clinicians will come in with that.
Yes, the clinician will come in with that.
And I think that and I can't help but think that that's because it's easier to talk than to play.
Right.
I found some of the best clinicians out there, not to cut you off, but some of the best clinicians out there are the ones who are just playing a lot. Man, they're just like they're playing a lot, and maybe they don't even know how to explain what they can play. That's so funny to me that it's just like I don't even really know what I just played, but here it is. I'll play some more for you. Yeah. I think that's really refreshing, actually, versus someone who
my comparison, because you were talking about teaching private lessons and stuff too, is in my mind, if you really want to study with someone and learn the wisdom side of things, there's I'll take lessons with a guy for a year or whatever. You know, like that's where you're going to get a lot of the conversation. Be like, okay, instead of picking up the sticks today,
Yes.
can we just talk about this? Because this is something I'm encountering that I know you have experience with.
Yep.
That's a better setting for that rather than approaching a clinic as
Right.
being a lesson, like a one-on-one lesson or a group lesson.
Right.
That's not what it is.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
I always
That's
found
very
that
true.
the clinicians is your opportunity to see a world-class drummer up close in person.
Yes.
That you don't get to see.
Yes.
You know, you could go take lessons from anybody that could show you how to read the music and do it note for note. That's all well and good. That's fine. But now here's your opportunity. Here's a world-class drummer. Don Familaro is coming in. Here's your opportunity to see him. Buddy Rich never did drum clinics, but I'm just saying, like, someone like that to come in. Here's your opportunity. Mike Portnoy does drum clinics. That would be your chance. Like, here you go, because he's up here. He's on that next level. You know what I mean? You're on that next
He's
level.
one of the big
so
boys.
to see like you up close drumming and that style that you bring and you know your ability, and it's just like, oh my God, here it is, and I'm going to be 10 feet away.
Exactly.
I'm not like, oh, you're way up there on stage.
Exactly.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Or like
Yeah.
you're listening to your records and you're like, man, now you get to see it in person.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't swing too far the other way though. It's very there's a line there, because I also would be super bummed if I went to a clinic and it was just the guy playing, and it's like, especially if they were in town doing a clinic, which a lot of times that happens when they're already in town playing a show. It's just
Right.
like, okay, so this is just you playing without your band now.
Right.
Like that's a different
Right.
that's a different thing. I'm not saying it should be a complete show. There's a balance of the two, but I agree with you saying that there should be a little bit more. If you had to rock the boat one way or the other, I agree that seeing and absorbing the playing and the approach up close and personal is really what a clinic is like.
I think one way to do this is if someone asks a question, they say, hey, how do you play double bass? Instead of just using your words to explain how to play double bass, you do, and you say, here's my technique, and then you do it. You do the
Right,
thing
right.
on the spot. It's a call to action. And I think that's a tough thing for some teachers to do, so they just don't do it. And they'll just talk, and they'll talk, and they'll talk, and they'll talk, and they'll talk. Some of this too might be I'm speaking from a place personally where it's much easier for me to talk than it is to play.
Yeah.
Playing drums in ABR is not easy for me. Pick a song, really doesn't even matter what it is or how old it is, they're all hard. So if I'm going to take the path of least resistance, it's going to be just explaining it, because I understand it all through and through. But then to be like, okay, it's like, run that mile in 4.5 minutes, or tell me what it's like to run the mile. One is a lot easier than the other one.
Good point.
So you're gonna try to.
Very good point.
Got a
I
bell.
like that.
Yes, I'm offended. I've only
I
gotten
know.
2 bell hits though.
Is that you're
man.
after the bell? You're after the affirmation that you're doing a good job.
That's
It all
right.
ties in. It all ties in. If only your drum teacher had a bell.
Man,
And you would have known that you were doing a good job.
we gotta get the blast bell version of that though,
Dude.
you know?
Dude, that you spent all that time in R&D. Just rip that. You just put that thing on top of your cymbal.
You could have been playing this the
You could
whole
have been
time.
playing that the entire time. It's
We-
been on the front of every
This wouldn't
hotel
have
desk
lasted.
for
This wouldn't
years,
have
man. That's the sound.
we could open up this market, Zildjian. We could sell to every hotel in the nation the blast bell version of whatever the hotel concierge bell is.
Uh-huh.
And
People
very
familiar with the
musical.
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like what happens if your bell did horrible.
Yeah.
They're like, we need to sell these somehow. Like, will hotels take them? Drummers don't want them.
That's true.
Drummers don't want them.
I take it back.
All right, so we're talking clinics. I do want to touch on this because this part of this segment is talking about the stuff people don't realize. One thing people don't realize with drum clinics, like they kind of don't realize with shows, is all of the organization that
Yeah.
goes on in the background.
Yeah.
It's crazy. In addition to us saying, hey, we want to have someone come do a clinic. I'm not going to use you as an example because you're awesome and you're willing to work with us and you're local, blah blah blah. Say we want someone else to come in and
Yep.
do a clinic. Say we want Thomas Lang.
Yep.
Okay, we want Thomas Lang to come do a
Thomas
clinic.
Lang's coming in.
We reach out usually through a company to get to him, unless we're super tight with him. I might DM him on Instagram, be like, "Hey, Thomas Lang, we're drums." That's a hard way to get through, but typically they're already set up with brands that they endorse, so you have to go through one of those to kind of get to the person, and then they want to be a part of it. Sometimes it's crazy how this swings. I don't know if you know a lot about this, but sometimes the company is willing to give you a couple bucks to pay the guy to come out because they want him to be there promoting their product and to be playing their gear,
Yep.
right? but more
That's
often
usu-
than yeah. That's
Well, I was gonna say that's usually how it works for me.
that works. Okay.
So I play DW, Zildjian, Vic Firth, Evans,
Okay.
Ultimate Ears.
Got it.
And if I'm doing a clinic, usually where we start is with the companies, and we'll say, what are you guys willing to send as far as a
Mm-hmm.
clinic pack, and how much money are you willing to contribute? And let's say your fee is $1,500, you might get a third of that just through companies,
Right.
which you then invoice after the clinic is over, and now you're responsible for the other $1,000.
Of course. Yeah. And so that happens, but there are other situations where you have that conversation. Sometimes it's monetary to help kind of promote the event, but usually as a drum shop, we have experience in putting on shows and different things here. It's a huge expense for us.
Yes.
So the fact that you can see a drum play for $10, even $20, sometimes $30, like is
ridiculous.
trying to recoup. Believe me,
Yeah.
no one's rolling around in money in this. This is very much like, is the artist willing to do this for a certain amount of money to give back to the community? Is the drum shop willing to put themselves out there on behalf of the drummers? It's a lot of that giving to the community. That's what a clinic is
And
really
hopefully
about.
sell some product when people
Of
are in
course.
the store.
Yeah, of course.
That's like the X
Yeah.
factor. Can you sell anything
Right.
while they're here?
Yeah.
But I don't think you're moving a lot of product
No, you're not.
when they're here.
And usually you get the shop gets stuck with they have to buy the stuff that if the
artist
company doesn't
wants.
they have to buy the stuff that the artist wants or
Yeah.
that's on the rider.
And you know it's going to be high end. It's going to be
Always.
collectors. It's going to be some weird symbols in there. It's going to be a specific throne. And
Right, exactly. So, for example, for this clinic that we did at the drum show, I won't get into the details of the money thing because that's personal with Pat and everything. But he was super generous with us. But we brought him out, but we had to buy that kit. So I still have a new Sonic kit that I wouldn't have bought normally for the store, sitting downstairs. And until that sells, I'm out amount of money.
Right.
What
kind of kit is it?
So it's a new Sonic
Oh.
kit. It's cherry maple shells. It's really nice. It's like where their USA stuff starts now. Yeah.
What is it, like
It's-
$8,000?
No, it is like $2,250.
Oh.
$2,250 doesn't come with a snare, but it's a shell pack.
Yeah.
Nice drums. But still, think about that. Keep in mind, margins in our industry are slim, so we paid most of that to
Right.
have that kit,
Right.
so that Pat could have that stuff to play. I mean, he
Right.
brought his own cymbals. Usually, guys will do that kind of thing, depending on how they're traveling, right? But then you have, in addition to that, just from a shop perspective, in addition to that cost potentially being covered, usually not,
Yeah.
you have to get the person here. So that could be flights.
Yep.
That could be reimbursing for gas money, the travel expenses. Depending on when the event is, where they're coming from. Now you got a hotel for a night
Yep.
or two.
Yep.
And then you have the expense of
Their fee.
their fee to finish that out. And then someone to be there for them.
Yep.
If they get in early in the morning, they need to be picked up, taken to the hotel, this and
Yep.
that. You're paying an employee, you're doing it yourself, that kind of thing. So when it's all said and done, if you see someone is coming to a drum shop and you'd like to see them, go and support it.
Absolutely.
Because
For
there's
sure.
so much energy that goes into it. Not just saying that we went through the money thing, but the energy and the time that it goes into to
Yeah.
coordinate something like
Yeah.
that is intense. And it's like, oh, why don't you have this guy come in or that guy come in? Or like, oh, you only did one drum clinic this year. It's like, guys, it's pretty crazy and it's
Yeah.
only getting more expensive.
Yeah.
So this is what
No,
I
that's
love this
exactly
segment
right.
to talk about this because no one knows what goes on. They just see, oh, it's $10 to go see Suckerman at this
Yeah.
place. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know if I want to do it. That's a way to support your drum shop.
Yeah.
Get them some reimbursement so they can do more events like that.
Yeah. And the clinicians know there's money to be made here, so they know we know that there's companies that are backing us, and we know that people are willing to pay for our service, if you will.
Yep.
But what I try to remember, it's so funny, is we talked about my farming earlier on. I grew up on a farm, and one of the things we do is wheat. We grow wheat, which the stalk of wheat, what supports the grain, which is at the top, is baled and is called straw. And straw is used for bedding. So if you can picture fall, you have these little mini straw bales now that are sold. And then you have bigger bales, which are 40 pounds or so. They're about this big. And then you have huge round bales and square bales in the fields. So we deal with the 40-pound bales. Now, what does any of this matter? There's a lot of time spent to get to the point where you are baling a straw bale. Once you get to that point, you're throwing it and you're stacking it, and it's hot because it's July. You sell a straw bale for between $4 and $6. So how many straw bales does it take to equal what I get paid to do a clinic? The problem with being in the music industry, in any industry for a long time, when you become successful is you forget how hard it is to make money. And when you forget that, you start to think to yourself, oh yeah, $1,500, you know, I'm going to need that. It's like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
For what you're doing, that's a lot of money. People are paying for your 20 years of practicing. I understand that. It's baked in. You've done the work. You've put in the time. People want to see it. Plus, there's going to be a draw, and sponsors want to back you up. But this relationship has to be understood on both sides, because on the clinician side, I have seen some people who know how much they can get away with, because it's very personal between the artist, and the promoter or the drum shop owner.
Yeah.
And it's a weird relationship. It doesn't really exist in the guitar world as much. The drumming world's very friendly and unique in that sense. We're happy to share insider secrets and practice tips and get together and talk shop. I mean, that's what we're doing
this
here,
whole thing is, yeah.
which is really cool. It's really cool. But yeah, teaching a lot of clinics, I always appreciate the fact that drum shops are willing to do as much work and put as much on the line, because, man, it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and it's a risk, but it's really cool when it works well for both parties.
It is very cool when it works well, and the feedback you get, just even doing the PA drum show and the clinic involved with that, you're constantly getting that feedback and that affirmation a little bit too, that that pat on the back, like good job, and you put in all that time and effort and to make it happen, and it's good when everyone appreciates it and everyone realizes what a great event it was and everything they got out of it. I mean, you're still talking about the Thomas Lang Clinic, and what you got out of that. Like you went out of your way to experience a next level drummer perform right in front of your eyes.
That's true, and that says a lot about Drums Etc. then, because maybe you were at that event and now you come to the shop and you associate everything cool that happened there with your shop. So it helps elevate your brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're doing a lot in brand right now. That's this whole thing. I mean, just trying to, and it's really less about, to flip over into the sales world. It's more about letting people know we're here.
Right.
There's so much effort that we have to put out there, and gladly, but there's so much effort to just make sure we get that, hey, remember us guys?
Yep, exactly.
Out there. You know what I mean?
You got to get that billboard.
That's it. It's all
We're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying.
You got to hang it over
We're going old
501.
school.
Yeah.
Forget about what the township says. Just
Yep.
suspend a line over the road and let it rip, man.
We'll put it up on the side of some hay bales, man. We'll collaborate here.
I'll sell them to you.
Hey,
$4 a bale.
we'll put it in your barn.
That's not going to work.
It's not gonna work.
We could take down some of the Mike Portnoy posters.
Yeah.
Matt, you need a poster of me.
Oh, Sean.
Come on, man.
I do.
So many Portnoys equal one Sean
That's
Groff.
right.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
there's
I don't have enough.
it's
There's not enough.
all right. We're gonna get nerdy about gear and Hall of Fame.